Hey guys, so thought I would do another truck talk type vlog just to let you guys in on what's going on with me and my business. I woke up this morning and we're having sort of stormy conditions. The rain was coming down so heavy this morning. It seems to have eased off a little bit right now. But there's a bit of wind and stuff happening as well, so leaves and things are probably be quite a bit of those today, with the leaves being knocked off. So I'm excited to try out the turf tracer today in these sort of extreme conditions, because on the weekend I took off the mulch kit, the factory mulch kit that was on the turf tracer, and I wanted to try and see what the bagger kit, how it would perform on the walk behind, you know, in these types of wet conditions that I usually find myself in for a large part of the year. So just you know, I wanted to see what it would do. Normally with the Honda, the 21-inch Honda, the commercial HRC 216, I've always normally bagged with that. Probably 99.9% of the time I bag with that mower all year long. Just in the extreme sort of dry season during July and August, when you know, most of the lawns are turning brown and you know, there's not much growing and stuff, do I switch the actual Honda to mulching. And traditionally, with the ride-on mowers that I've used in my business, you know, I've talked on the podcast about, you know, the different ride-ons that I've used throughout the year. So I'll just sort of recap those for those of you guys that are new to the channel and new to the podcast that haven't heard those episodes. So when I first started my business, obviously it was with the Honda, the HRC 216 21-inch mower. You know, I'm in the city, a lot of smaller city lots, but there are a few, you know, bigger properties that just take too long to do with the Honda at times. So I've always found the need for a slightly larger machine. So I started out, you know, but yeah, so I'm just sort of trying to think of the order that I had these mowers in. So when I first decided to get a larger format type lawnmower, a bigger deck, you know, I started out probably similar to what a lot of guys in the industry start out with, and that's a lawn tractor. So I bought a 42-inch deck on a John Deere tractor from Home Depot. And you know, being new in the lawn care industry, I was having trouble with that machine bagging. And like I said, being new to the industry, I didn't realize that there was different types of blades available and all that. And you know, I have to say that part of the problem is, you know, I went and bought the bagger kit for that tractor originally, but it didn't come with any blades. So I figured the blades that come with the machine are the ones you use for this bagger kit. And you know, as most of you guys know, the blades that come with the machine are like the 3-in-1, you know, mulching, bagging, side discharge blades. They're sort of, you know, John Deere's generic blade that isn't really good at anything. You know, it does cut grass, but if you're trying to bag or if you're trying to mulch, it's pretty much useless. So, you know, being new to the industry, like I said, I didn't know that you could get different blades for that particular machine. That, you know, I just figured whatever the blades are with the machine is what you're supposed to use. And you just put a bag on it and take it off if you're mulching. You know, I was also used to the Honda, the HRC 216, where, you know, it comes with a mulch plug and it comes with a bag, but you don't change the blades. The blades are the same blades for both. So I just figured it would be the same. So the rain's starting to come down. pretty heavy again. I gotta have the wipers on and stuff, so if you guys hear that, I apologize. So I ended up, after I think it was about 6 months, deciding that I would get rid of that tractor, that it wasn't doing a good job for what I needed it for. Like I said, it couldn't bag. So, wow, yeah, the rain is really coming down. So I decided to get rid of it, and I ended up getting a Gravely zero turn, because I figured, okay, well, this is a proper landscaper type machine. Although I think, thinking back now, I think it was probably still a residential model, Gravely zero turn. And that one was a 32-inch deck, because I thought, you know what, I was still concerned about the lots being small and gates and stuff, and I figured if I can get the machine through a gate, then it would just be all the better for me to be able to use the machine more often. So lo and behold, I get that machine, and I get a bagger kit for it as well, and same issue. The bagger kit comes with I think on that one it was the bag on the back is similar to the John Deere tractor, but this one had just a clear accordion looking type tube that would go from the side deck all the way to the bag. And again, it wasn't that great at doing anything really. It didn't bag very well. It didn't the grass would barely make it up. Even when it was dry, the grass would barely make it up. So I think with that one too, it was a case of it having not the right blades for bagging. It was just meant for side discharging, which is how the machine comes. But again, being new, and ironically with this machine, I bought this one from the dealer, and they never mentioned anything about different blades, or that I should try different blades. When I did talk to them that the bagger kit was not working properly, or it just didn't seem to bag any good, they just said that there's a, what do they call those, like a power flow type system available for it if I wanted, and that's one of those things that sort of attaches. It's like a box that attaches to the side of the deck, and then it has some pulleys and belts and I guess a fan blade inside that creates some suction and blows the grass into the back bag. And right there I was kind of disappointed, because I was like, well, so much for getting the 32-inch machine to fit through gates, because if I have this thing now on the side of it that has to be installed with belts and things like that, it's not as quick as and easy as just popping a tube off the side to get to the to take it off and fit through a gate. Sorry, I'm just distracted here. Traffic is like unusually backed up. I think there might be some traffic lights out because of the wind. I found it unusual or disappointed that I would now have to have this contraption on the side of that unit. So I started looking at other options at that point. And I'd always heard great things about walker mowers, but they are quite a bit pricier. I believe the if I remember correctly, with taxes and stuff, that Gravely zero turn that I bought at the time, it was like $4,000. Not a huge investment, but it was about double the John Deere tractor price of $2,000. I think I'm gonna take a detour here, try and get around this traffic. So it wasn't a huge price difference, the stepping up from the grave, or stepping up to the Gravely from the John Deere was about a $2,000 premium, which essentially is a 100% more expensive than the John Deere. John Deere was roughly about $2,000. The Gravely was about $4,000. And then I'm looking at these walkers, and with taxes and stuff, it was going to be, and this is in 2007, $14,000. So I was like, that's a huge commitment to step up to, and I don't know if I have all of the enough clients to support that and stuff. But it was sort of not like on a whim, but it was sort of like on faith that I'll build up the business. I'm still new in the business, but I'll build up enough clients and stuff to be able to justify using the walker. And the walker, at least the ones that they carried at the dealer, they were all 42 inch. They didn't have anything smaller. I know Walker you can get a 36 inch deck, but for the ones that my dealer carried, it was all just the 42 inch model. So I ended up taking the plunge in that, and some of the reasons that I decided to go with the walker, some of the things that made me look at the walker favorably at that time was, number one, I had to bag, and the walker had the GHS system, so it has the blower already built in, and the blower is underneath, so it's not this contraption that's sitting on the side. With the walker design, you can trim or mow from either side of your deck, and you don't have this added contraption, like I said, sticking out the sides. So I thought that right there is a plus. Obviously, the second thing is the walker is designed to, basically designed around that GHS system. So I figured it's going to do a better job regardless, because of all the engineering and everything that went into that particular mower. It's designed as a sort of vacuum bagging system. The other thing that I liked about the walker versus anything else that I saw was that front deck. Was that the deck was out front. It wasn't in the middle. You weren't sitting on top of the deck. The deck was out front, which let you, you could get, underneath, say, bushes, or if there was, say, a bench or something, like a park bench or something like that, you could, slip that deck partly, sometimes underneath certain obstacles and stuff, without you having to, basically would save some trimming. So the other big, huge factor was with the Honda. I was doing, really well in the rain. I had no choice but to mow in the rain where I live. Otherwise, I wouldn't have a business. There's just too many days in the year where it's raining. So you have to struggle through it. But the Honda, I found, does a fairly good job in the rain. And part of the, some of the keys that I've learned with mowing in the rain is keeping the deck clean, and to maximize airflow. And because the bag on a 21-inch mower is attached right on the actual cutting deck, there's no long tube for the grass to have to travel up. So I find that 21-inch mowers can do a better job more effectively of mowing or bagging grass, wet grass in particular, because it goes straight into there. There's enough vacuum, enough suction, and air lift being created for the grass just to exit that little section chute of the deck and straight into the bag. So I found that with the Honda, I haven't had issues with having to mow in the rain. So that walker with that out front deck, the other nice feature was that it also flipped up, and you didn't need any jacks or anything like that. So I figured, well, that's just like the Honda. Like when I'm mowing a backyard, if it ever does start to clog with wet grass, I just turn the mower off, put it on its side, and clean out the deck. And I thought, well, that walker will be perfect because it's got that out front deck that flips up. So, you know, in the rain, if I ever, you know, it's got the GHS systems, it's got the vacuum system, which is going to help with wet grass. You know, if it ever does clog, I can just flip the deck up and clean it. And I don't have to climb underneath it or do any of that. So in theory, those were the reasons why I decided to go with a walker back at that time. And I have to say, the walker is a fantastic mower. It does a great job. That GHS system, it packs in grass so tight in that hopper box in the back. I think the one I had was like 9.5 bushels. I could get that on large properties packed so tightly, so much grass. It was great, and it left the lawn looking almost like it was green velvet. It was just such a nice mower system. Though it had its drawbacks, and I would say the only issues that I really encountered with the walker, which ultimately, you know, ended with me selling the machine. There was a couple, actually. The first one was the mower was too big. At least the 42-inch deck was too big for the lawns that I do. So it wouldn't fit through gates. So, you know, there was lawns where I could do the front yard with the walker, but then for the backyard, I'd have to use the Honda. And typically the backyards were bigger than the front yards. So it was kind of counterproductive. And I would find that, you know what, if I'm taking out the Honda anyways, and I got to do the bigger backyard, I might as well just do the front too, because the front is the smaller section. So the walker ended up sitting on the trailer more and more often. I would say probably at least 95% of the time, the walker was sitting on the trailer, and the, you know, the $1,000 Honda commercial HRC 216 was doing that 95% of the work, earning essentially 95% of my income. The other issue that I started finding with the walker was because of the weather we have. As you can see here today, it's raining, sometimes heavily. It's rained all night. And that machine we have in the city that I live in, it's a lot of clay-based soil. And clay soil does not do well with a lot of rain. It doesn't let the rain permeate. When I'm, you know, if I ever have to dig a hole, a fence post or something like that, you know, I have like a foot of maybe some nice topsoil, and then it hits this layer of solid clay. It's just like solid gray clay. No matter where I am in the city, if I ever have to dig a hole throughout the years, it's been the same sort of thing. So what ends up happening is we get so much rain, the rain kind of, you know, it drains through that top 1 foot layer, but once it gets to that, there's nowhere for the water to go. It can't go through the clay. So essentially you get this big bowl, basically, and the water can only drain out sideways to the street. So you get this big bowl effect, and the water just stays saturated. And there's been times where, you know, we'll get some good rains, and for instance, the first house I ever purchased with my wife, you know, we went to go look at it and you know, walk in the property and stuff, and it hadn't rained in over a month, over 30 days, where it was unusually dry for the time of year, and the backyard was still soggy. It was still spongy when you were walking on it. So it just sort of goes to show you, like, the water just does, there's major drainage issues everywhere here, because of that, the amount of clay, you know, underneath that topsoil. So like I said, you know, that's always been an issue. So with a walker, what I found was, because the lawns were so spongy, for so long, even if it hadn't rained for a while, what ends up happening is the lawns can't support the weight of the walker. So the walker, it's not a crazy heavy machine. They're pretty compact and stuff, but it's a lot heavier than anything I was using. Obviously, a Honda HRC C16 doesn't compare in the weight to the Honda, or sorry, to the walker. So, the walker I found would start to sink. It would, start to rut the lawn easier. It would start to sink, and because of that GHS system, what I thought was a plus with it having it built in, it actually would make the ground clearance of this machine quite low, because you're sitting essentially on top of the GHS blower system, and the hopper in the back of the walker is on top of the motor, which means that those two things are dropped down lower than they would normally be in a regular zero turn type machine. So what ended up happening was, even if the walker would sink just a little bit, it would get stuck because the lack of ground clearance underneath the machine, because of the GHS, the engine and the blower system. In particular, the bottom of the blower housing would get caught up. And then, the wheels would just spin out and it would sink even more, and you would end up, with a huge mess. So this actually happened quite a few times, to the point where I was, worried about taking the walker on the lawn, because it was just, as fantastic as it was, when it came to mowing in the dry season or cleaning up leaves, it was always iffy for me whether it would be safe enough to take the mower out that day, because of not wanting to obviously cause a huge mess in somebody's lawn when you're there to they're hiring you basically to make their lawn look better, and the lawn looks worse than when you were there, or looks worse than before you were there. So ultimately I made the tough decision, because I really did love the walker mower, to sell it. Luckily, the walker held its value, and I was able to use it for 4 seasons. And like I said, I bought it for $14,000 and change in 2007, and I ended up selling it in 2010. I used it for 4 years, or 3 years, 3.5 years. Can't remember exactly. I think it was 4 years. Maybe it was 2000, or at the end of the 2010 season that I sold it. Anyways, I ended up selling it for $11,000, so I didn't lose too much on it, and was able to use it for those 3 or 4 years in my business. But like I say, it wasn't right. So my next option, because I still needed a bigger machine, was like, well, I need something lightweight, because that's my biggest thing here. If the machine's too heavy, it doesn't matter how nice of a machine it is, I'm not going to be able to use it. So I actually ended up going back to a Home Depot John Deere tractor, because they were so light. And I figured, with a walker, it was such a struggle when it would get stuck to try to get it unstuck by myself, that I figured too, with the John Deere tractor, that I could essentially, there's in the 400-pound range, that I could essentially push it myself and get it unstuck. So I took a leap, and I had done some research up to then, and by this point I had realized or learned that there were different blade options available, and that even for those John Deere home residential tractors that you see at Home Depot, that you can go and order a, on top of the bagger kit, you can get high lift blades that work with them. And you can actually get, even though they come with a mulch plug, you can get actual mulch kit, and it's like a big long plastic piece that essentially slides in through the chute opening of the deck, and it goes along the whole front of the deck and screws on with basically one bolt, and essentially changes the whole shape of the underside of the deck to two separate compartments, so that the blade on the left hand side is not pushing all its grass to the right hand side and having the right hand mulch blade trying to work through it all. It keeps them separate so that each blade is essentially mulching its own area. So I bought that tractor, and I bought the dedicated mulch kit. Now it's funny, when you buy a bagger kit for the John Deere tractor, it comes with just the bags and the tube, and doesn't come with blades, which is what threw me off that first time. So I had to buy separate high lift bagging blades for that. But when you buy the dedicated mulch kit, it comes with dedicated mulch blades. It doesn't make any sense to me that they wouldn't include the high lift blades with the bagger kit to give you the best possible experience when they're doing that with the mulch kit. Anyways, so I used that system for 5 years, and it was fantastic, aside from being slower. Lawn tractor is a lot slower, but for me, in the lawns that I do, the sun is coming out, the rain has stopped, I see blue skies, is fantastic. We're gonna have a good day. But essentially, the mower, the John Deere tractor, it was so lightweight that it never got stuck. That wasn't an issue. Even with me sitting on it, even with it bagging grass, it would never get stuck. It would rut occasionally if it was a really nasty area. You could start to see tire tracks, but it was never enough to get stuck where it was happening constantly with the walker. And the nice thing too with the John Deere is, even if it did ever get stuck, like I said, because the bagger kit could come off, I could take the bags off to lighten it up. I could actually take the whole bagger kit off pretty easily, and be essentially left with just the tractor, pull the release on that transmission, and push it out. It wasn't a big deal. It was actually a fantastic mower, and I used it, like I said, commercially in my business. It did great. Never had issues. In fact, after 5 years of using it, I loved that tractor. It was just great. And then, the dedicated mulch kit that I put in it worked fantastic. It would mulch up leaves like nobody's business. It was shockingly surprising for a tractor that is essentially, $2,000, and then you add maybe $1,000 more in the mulch kit and blades and the bagger kit and blades. It did fantastic. As most of you guys know, that mower got stolen along with my trailer that you see probably in my back window there, and all the other equipment that was in it. So for the last 2 years, I've been going without, and I've been using just the 21-inch mower. I did basically the 3-piece equipment challenge in using just a blower, a trimmer, and a push mower, and running my whole business for the past 2 years with just those essentially 3 pieces of equipment. And for the most part, for my lawns, because I'm in the city, it has been working out. It has worked for me. The only issue is that it's been tiring. So, there are a handful, probably 8 to 10 lawns that were too big for me to really be doing with the Honda, although I was doing them, and they weren't huge. I could get them done with the Honda, but it was like, it's not the most efficient way to mow those lawns. So I started thinking about replacing the tractor, and as good as the tractor was, you know, and that was my initial thought, was just go get another tractor, because I actually still have the bagger kit for it and the high lift blades. But it was like, you know what? Something that has always sort of eaten away at me is the talk from people online, because you know, you're constantly online in forums and things like that, learning from other lawn care guys, other businesses, and you know, in the United States in particular, the 36-inch mower, 36-inch walk-behind mower is very, very popular. So that's why I decided, you know, I thought, you know what, I'm going to see if something pops up, and also now these stand-on mowers and stuff like that. So I started thinking, well, you know, what if I get a 36-inch mower? I could start with a stand-on. You know, they seem to be a little bit more available than the walk-behind. They seem to be a bit more available than the stand-on type mowers. And lo and behold, as most of you guys know by now, a few of them popped up. I ended up buying that Viking, the older Viking, which I used for about a month until seeing a turf tracer pop up, 36-inch turf tracer, a newer model, pop up as well on Craigslist, and I ended up buying that as well. So I haven't used the Viking since I bought the turf tracer. The turf tracer has been really nice so far. But the big test, I've been mulching it. The turf tracer came with the factory mulch kit already installed. It had been installed since 2000. The mower was brand new, according to the previous owner. He had never taken it off. He had never bagged with it. He just mulched from day one. So I ended up taking that off over the weekend. That was a bit of a struggle. A lot of the bolts were completely unrecognizable, as far as being rusty, with their, you know, they weren't even octagonal shaped anymore, just completely rounded over and stuff, from the erosion of the grass flying by it, always constantly mulching, and then the rust would eat away at the bolt, and, you know, I guess erosion from all the stuff being cut underneath, going against it, just wore the ends of the bolts. So that was a bit of a struggle getting that off. I ended up having to cut off a couple of the bolts, but I got it off. And when I had that Viking over the summer, you know, I was looking for a bagger kit, knowing I would, you know, want to have a bagger for some parts of the year. I ended up finding an Encore walk-behind bagger on eBay from somebody in Florida. So I purchased that. That was shipped to me. I got it. I put it on the Viking at first, and you know, like I say, I put it on, I tried it out, it seemed to work, but you know, we were in the mulching sort of time of year, so I didn't really use it. And then I ended up getting the turf tracer with that mulch kit. I've been mulching ever since, but now I found, you know, the last couple weeks, although the mulch kit on the turf tracer works fantastic, it obliterates the leaves, it takes 2 or 3 passes to do, and I just found that it's just taking, you know, it just takes too long. And then when the ground is wet, that's 2 or 3 extra passes that you're running, you know, one of these machines over, and potentially rutting the lawn and stuff. So I figured, you know what, I want to try out the mulching on the walk behind, and you know, it may not work out. I may have to, in this time of year, go back to the mulch system, and, or sorry, the bagging system may not work out, and I may have to go back to mulching. But my theory is that because it's very similar to the Honda, where the bag is on the side, I got the factory sort of style, the cloth bag. For one, I got the cloth over an aluminum accelerator and stuff, because the aluminum ones and the other steel ones are just so heavy. I have an actual accelerator, brand accelerator for my Honda, and even that, being such a small little box compared to one you'd have on a walk behind, is so heavy. And then when it's packed with grass, it's just crazy. So I figured, you know, I'm just gonna go with the cloth, because it's just a metal frame with the cloth. The actual mount stays on the mower, and I think that'll do, for my purposes, it'll do better. So that was the theory, at least. And I'm gonna have to go and park behind here. Not a lot of parking here today, which is odd. Usually there's a ton of parking available, but just the way these cars are parked are making it difficult for me. So anyways, yeah, so I decided I'm going to try out the bagger kit today, see how that does here in sort of these conditions. Now the rain has stopped and the sun is starting to shine, but I don't know if you guys can see behind me there, out the window. So there's a bit of leaves, they're all wet and stuff, so hopefully it works out well and serves me well. So I'm going to get back to work. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this sort of chat on my thought process on the different mowers that I've bought over the years. If you like this video, don't forget to like it, give it the thumbs up there. And if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. And don't forget to check out the podcast. And if you want to see a video, I think I posted a video of me removing the mulch kit off of the turf tracer. That's there as well, and you can sort of see the pain that was. Alright guys, so hope you guys are all doing well, and we'll catch you in the next one. Alright, bye bye.